Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you guys one of my video specials. Today I'll be having a price negotiation for the Technical Booster 2, the Genius Strategy. Basically in this video I'll be going through all of the, I would say, most sought after cards in the set and basically saying what I think their prices will be. I won't have any set price for the cards, but I'll basically rank all the categories for the cards and what I think the most expensive ones are for each of the separate categories, including, for example, like as you see here, the 3 generation rares with themselves, and going on down the list with each subcategory. So without further ado, like I said, I won't have any set prices because they're always subject to change, but just my opinion on what I think will be most expensive compared to the others. So let's go ahead and get started. So for the 3 gen rares, as you see, I have lined up Obaterondis, Afonk, and Shirabaku Buster. I think the Mega Colony will be the most expensive gen rare, just for its unique effect in which your opponent cannot call units to rear. It locks down a lot of decks. If you don't have rear guards and you're thinking you can, hold off against Mega Colony by not calling rear guards that'll be paralyzed, this card's going to stop that. The Counterblast is a little heavy, but other than that, it's a really unique card that's going to find its way in a lot of Mega Colony decks. Up next, we have Afonk, which is the Great Nature gen rare, and it also has another cool effect, which is going to be this unit cannot be retired by card effects. It gives all of any number of your rear guards this effect, so it'll stop your own retire draw effects, but also protect you from your opponent's effects. For example, Denial Griffin. So they won't be able to be retired by that effect, so you don't have to worry about that pesky G-Guard, and you can get your numbers up pretty high. And lastly, we have Shirabaku Buster, which allows for rear guards to gain drive checks. The only reason I have this at the bottom of my list is because Murakumo has always been the most underwhelming. Nothing that there's anything wrong with Murakumo. It's a very fun deck, and it has a lot of potential. But just in all the sets that it's been in, set 3, it's always just kind of been a little lackluster compared to the other ones. And I'm going off of just comparison to the gen rares from the last technical booster. And this is all a price guide. I'm not here to say anything about any of the clans. They're all really good clans. They all needed the support. It's all really good support. It's all just a price opinion. Just because if you look at our last gen rares, we had the Nubatama one, which is now sitting at the most expensive one, followed by the Spike Brothers one, and then the Tachikaze one. The Tachikaze one sits at the lowest just because it's a retire all effect, and yes, a rear guard drive check is interesting. It's just not as effective on your opponent as the other 2 would be, which is why I would think this card is sitting at the bottom of the list. The other 2, like I said, really add on to the deck. The other one just performs a drive check, which is cool pressure, but other than that, not too much can be said for that. So that's what I think. I think Obaterondis will sit in the Nubatama price range, so averaging 18 to 20 most likely in the long run. Afonk, probably the $15 range, and Shirabaku Buster will probably be sitting at a $9 to $10 range after the long run of the set release. And then moving on, we have the Stride triple rares for this set, which are Darkface, Big Belly, and Yasui. Once again, it's the same order for price range. Darkface has another paralyze effect, and they can't call units over. Actually, they can't be affected by trigger effects, this one. So it helps if your opponent gets a stand trigger or another effect, completely locking them down out of that. Big Belly gives power with his effect, and Yasui has the Shadow Stitch effect, which at the end of the battle they attacked. If it did not hit, you can pay the cost and search your deck for up to another unit. So they're all very good. I once again going off of just comparisons to the last technical booster, because this one I feel is going to be very similar to that. The most expensive Stride triple rare from that one was actually the Tachikaze one, which was the Restander, which was another game-changing one, which I feel Darkface has that potential. Big Belly is a close second to that, and Yasui has that Shadow Stitch pressure, which is very interesting as well. So I feel that these three in the price range will be all very close to one another. So basically, as in the last technical booster, all the cards have remained in an average between the $10 range to the $20 range. Any that I would probably see spike up in the long run would probably be either Darkface or Big Belly. Yasui, like I said before, it's not a restanding Vanguard game potential like Gluttony Dogma was, and it doesn't have trigger canceling effects or card effect canceling or power boost too much like Big Belly, which is why it still remains at the bottom of the list for me on this one. And moving on, we get into a little more diversity with the last of the triple rares. In this list, I actually have the Mega Colony one as being the cheapest of these triple rares, basically because there are better options to run with the Darkface deck, which is what Superior Mantis was basically supposed to be called for. But Cyclomatooth is, in my opinion, just such a better backup grade 3 in that deck for easier lockdown, which is why I don't see Superior Mantis finding room in a lot of decks, which is why it probably won't be too expensive because it won't be used too much. As for Arigato Spark, which is number 2 on this list, I find it will be a good backup grade 3 in the Yasui deck as a great search effect and power effect. So it's just, like I said, a good backup grade 3. Kagura Bloom Break Rod doesn't do as much in the Murakumo deck as Arigato Spark could. And finding the most expensive spot on the list for these triple rares would have to be Professor Arusha, which is a restanding Vanguard with a unique success effect for restanding, which I find restanding Vanguards always seem to be the ones that are in the higher price category range. And I might actually see this card being a little more expensive than the Strides that I mentioned before as well. So definitely look out for this card if you're looking to build a Great Nature deck. I don't think it will find much use in the Big Belly decks, but separate decks as well will put this card to great use, which is why I feel it is the number 1 deserving spot for this category of triple rares. As for the other two, I think Superior Mantis will probably be in the single price range. Same for actually all of these, just because easy cards to pull. I could see Arusha be in the $10 or $15 range later on, or even stay in that range, just because I said restanding with a very easy effect. Moving on now, we have the G-Guardians for this pack. The order sets just like the other cards in the beginning of this video, in which the Mega Colony G-Guardian is first. It's just so good. It has a Counterblast 1 where you rest your opponent's entire back row, so that takes out boost plays, which is very important for a lot of cards, like the Gen Break ones that require a boost. If you rest that unit, they lose that later on. So like I said, it's a good counter card play. Yes, it takes up Counterblast, but it's definitely worth it if you can stop a lot of their plays. Next up is the Great Nature one, Ardillo, which has a retire plus 10 effect. So it's basically a better screw you, in my opinion, for Great Nature, because you can also benefit from the retire effects and get rid of any pesky units, like let's say Darkface paralyzes and gets that draw effect off. If you retire it before that happens, you'll take rid of that problem later on. And lastly, we have the Murakumo one. When it's placed on G-Guardian during the battle that your Vanguard was attacked, you choose up to one of your rear Guardians, move it to the Guardian Circle, and this unit gets plus 5,000, and you search your deck for one card with the same card as that and call it to Guardian Circle. So they're all really good effects. That one has additional guards, so you can hit really high numbers with it. And as I stated with the two previous ones, Ardillo and I forget the name of the G-Guardian for Mega Colony. For the price range of these, G-Guardians are always necessary in decks, so I will say these will probably all range from the $4 to $5 category, just because, like I said, they're necessary in a lot of decks, and none of them are, specific to any of their effects like Success, Shadow Stitch, or the Mega Colony one. So if anything, we'll say play it by ear for prices based on any decks that pop up for price, but like all G-Guardians, they do drop after a while, so maybe even the $2 or $3 range after a while. They are double rare, they're not triple rare, no gen rare ones, so you don't see too much of a price for these ones. Moving along, we have the double rares for each of the clans that got a unique support. For these, we have Hamsuke, Machinings, and actually Zanbaku. I have Hamkichi as the most expensive of these hollows, mostly because of the height for Hamsuke. It was a unique ploy for them to use. Going with the Hamsuke, I honestly thought they would go with like something more under the wire, like locks. But the fact that they gave Hamsuke support, I think, is really cool. And a lot of people are looking to build that deck, so I can find this card being at least a couple bucks above the other two on this one. Next up is Machining Stag Beetle. Machinings are a very good Mega Colony deck, so definitely a card to go for the deck. The alternate art also plays off a lot of players wanting to replace their old Stag Beetles, so it'll be definitely sought after. It's one of the more better grade 3s to run in the deck as well, so it definitely needed that reprint status as well. But as for the cheapest card on this list, Zangeki, I say mostly it will be sought after, those Zanbaku players, so that's definitely a must for them. The only reason I put it on the bottom is because the difficulty just to gather up the Zanbakus for this deck, it was, yes, a surprising support, and that's basically it. No one was prepared for this one, and they easily emptied the market for this card before anyone had a chance to get them, and no one had chance to prepare for this. People had chances to prepare for Stag Beetles because machinings were still a relevant thing, and Hamkichi, Hamsuke support was easier because they're commons and rares, which are easier to find than a triple rare from one of our first comic boosters. I still all say they will be in the single-digit price range, but other than that, this is the order in which I think the most expensive ones will be. Up next, we have the Sentinels for this pack. I'm not seeing these as being too expensive for any of them, probably all ranging within the $1 to $2 price range, just because the unflipper perfect guards and the generic ones will still be greater in my opinion, because all three of these clans have rear guards that you definitely want to protect, so rear guard dependent perfect guards will definitely still be superior to these three in my opinion. I think the Great Nature one might be the more better of them, just because it's a retire call effect, so if you are short on hand, you can use this to your advantage. The Shadow Stitch one next on my list, just because it's an easy bounce effect. Call it to rear and bounce it back. All you have to do is have a Shadow Stitch attack hit. Lastly is the Mega Colony one. It's a the specific ability for Mega Colony with a Soul Blast return effect, but in my opinion the Shadow Stitch is much easier to get off, and with Mega Colony being so counterblast heavily, you're gonna definitely want to run the Unflip Perfect Guard over this one. So like I said, $1 to $2 range for these cards. Moving along, we have the Hollow Critical Triggers, where it's put into Soul +5 for the respective Big Belly, Darkface, and Yasui. All necessary to those decks. One of the crits you have to run. So following the trend that the other criticals have run, I can say these will probably be in the $1 to $2 range, maybe a little more expensive for the Big Belly or the Darkface one, or even the Yasui one, depending on, like I said, how the plays go with the deck. If other decks find the strides like Big Belly, Darkface, and Yasui necessary, they'll also require these decks, not just the ones that run the grade 3s, so that also plays into that. We just have to wait and see how effective those strides are in the deck. But like I said, I've seen crits like these range from $1 to $2, so that's something you'll have to go off of for those. And to wrap up the video, I'm going with the reprinted cards for this set. First off on the list is Coiling Duckbill. I already had Machining Stag Beetle on this list, but he was in the double rare. I'm sticking with the rare and common reprints on the list. There were 5 reprinted cards in this list. And this is the order I pick. I don't say that the crit and draw will be too expensive, seeing as they're commons, but they're definitely ones to keep out for, because they are very useful in the decks. They both have +3 effects put into soul, so they build up soul power and all that. So, and it's, in my opinion, for Murakumo, the greatest backup crit to run, besides the hollow crit, if you're going with the Yasui build or even running the Yasui stride. So definitely good to stock up on this. Playsets could probably range you $1 each for them. They're definitely not, cheap triggers. And as for Duckbill, it was always a couple bucks, and I feel the reprint might lower it down a little bit, but I can still see this rare being $1 to $2 at least, just because it's necessary in pretty much every Great Nature deck. And just a small little look at the Murakumo unit reprint as a common in this pack. It was a promo actually in set 3, but it is very good in the deck. So to see a common reprint is going to help a lot of people that didn't have access to the boxes. It is a common though, so it'll be easy to grab. So I don't find it being too expensive, just like the other commons I had on the list. But good to see reprints for them. So yeah, that's it for my talk on the price guide to Technical Booster. It's definitely going to be a fun set, and I hope you all enjoy it as much as I will. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and Kira, Qualia out.